Am I live? Am I live? Hello, sorry I'm a couple of minutes late, but I was doing an interview and it went on a bit longer than I expected. So then I had to rush and have a shower because I've cycled all across Berlin today in the 28-degree heat, and I'm finally here. And I'm wearing, if you look, my Steve as Colonel Sanders t-shirt. It's a wonderful t-shirt, and you can get this and many others at sirmeeple.com for all of your 5G4D merch needs. So I'm only going to play one song. I am not organized for this stream at all this week because, like, I've been out all day and I came back and did this interview and it went longer than I expected. So I haven't done anything. So I can only do one song because it's late. It's late in Berlin and someone will complain, but I think I can sneak in one. And I'm going to do it now. And I'll sing it a bit quieter than I usually sing. And I'll do this. So people may know this one. I just need to... My guitar was in drop D before, so I need to tune it back up to standard tuning. I learned drop D very quickly when I started playing guitar, because like a lot of grunge was played in drop D. And I thought it was just a fairly standard thing that everyone knew, but a lot of people go, "Ooh, drop D, what's that?" And it's where you tune the E string down a whole step to D. It's a lovely chord, that, isn't it? I'm really unprepared, so I do apologise. So, what I'm going to need from you, for those watching tonight, can you pop some questions in the comments? Because I'm a little bit sort of flummoxed, and I'm just going to answer some questions tonight. So pop questions. I need some questions from you, and then I'll answer the questions, and then I'll play this song, and hopefully my neighbours won't call the police. So pop some questions in the comments, and I'll see you in a second. This is a classic one. You might not know it, but it's quite a classic tune. Yeah, that's all right. Disarm you with a smile, cut you like you want me to, cut that little child. Side of me is such a part of you. Oh, years bird. Oh, years bird. I used to be a little boy, so old in my shoes. What I choose is my choice. What's a boy supposed to do? Killer in me is a killer in you, my love. Send a smile over to you. Disarm you with a smile, leave you like they left me here, weather and denial. Betterness of one who's left alone. Oh, years bird. Oh, years bird, bird, bird. I used to be a little boy, so old in my shoes. What I choose is my voice. What's a boy supposed to do? Killer in me is a killer in you, my love. Send a smile over to you. Killer in me is a killer in you. Send a smile over to you. killer in me, it's a killer in you. Send a smile over to you. Killer in me, it's a killer in you. Send a smile over to you. There we go. Smashing Pumpkins, isn't it? Smashing Pumpkins off the Siamese Dream album, I believe. I heard that when it came out. As you can see by my beard, I'm old and that. So I've got some questions. I've also got some questions from the Discord. Remember, you can join the Discord by going to 5 Games for Doomsday, clicking 5gfd.com, clicking the pin post, and joining the Discord. Someone did last week. It was very exciting. And the thing is, with the Discord, I don't really do loads of participating because everyone else is so much more bloody interesting than me. So I instead of a drink of water because it's hot in Berlin. So I leave it to the people who are far more intelligent. So there's loads of people. So we have Ulf Persson in the stream. Happy old man age, Ulf. Ulf was 50 a couple of days ago. Happy birthday. I hope you had a wonderful birthday. I hope you're going to be in Essen this year so I can taunt you about being an old man. Ulf is someone who I only ever see at Essen. I only ever met at Essen. And yeah, we've known each other through Essen. Convention. I've got a question about conventions coming up, actually. Conventions truly are the most wonderful thing. And there are certain people who you only see in certain situations. And yet there's something about the intensity of a convention. There's something about the sort of collective joy that means you form relationships a lot quicker than you would in normal life. It's like a catalytic converter for making friendships. And I think of people I've met at conventions in different ways to people I've worked with and all of that sort of stuff. So if you can get to a convention, do. So Tony Bosca, greetings from Detroit. Ben, love the jams. I should play this, shouldn't I? If you're from Detroit, hang on. Can I remember this? Is it this? Something like that, isn't it? I don't know if I got this. Hang on, I'm just going to look. Something like that. No. I was right. So messed up, I want you here. In my room, I want you here. Now you're gonna be face to face, and I'll lay right down in my favorite place. And now I wanna be a dog. And now I wanna be a dog. Classic Detroit band. I believe they're from Detroit, aren't they? The Stooges. You can correct me, Tony, if I'm wrong, but I believe the Stooges are from Detroit. So Anthony Boydell, another Tony in the thingy, says we need you on stage with Cock Bongo at Chums. Yeah, so for those who don't know Cock Bongo, he is Tony from Edinburgh, and I didn't know Tony was a musician. But yes, at Chums we should do me and Tony should do a gig. Maybe an acoustic gig. We need to get an acoustic guitar, though, because I'm not taking one on a Ryanair flight. So we're going to start with the questions here. Ann Arbor. Isn't that the same thing? Ann Arbor? I mean, it's all Michigan, isn't it? Home of the University of Michigan. Yeah, it's how far from Detroit? The thing is, it's America, right? So I'm in Europe. So, I bet he says, "Oh, it's just around the corner. It's a 7-hour drive because, America and that." So we'll start with the questions here. So give me some questions. That's what I'm doing tonight. I'm just answering your questions. So all of you who are watching, pop a question in. I'll answer them. It can be about anything. I mean, you're most likely to do it about games, I would have thought. 45 minutes. Yeah, that means it's Detroit, basically. Yeah. So but you can ask me questions about anything. What I think about music, what I think about the arts, what I think about politics, what my favorite movie is, all of that sort of stuff. Just ask me questions. So we'll start with Clever Swine. Are you a Legrandha fan? El Burrow looks interesting. I haven't played Legrandha, to my shame, but El Burrow does look interesting. I do a podcast with Uli Blenneman, owner of Spielworks, publisher of El Burrow and Legrandha. And he says El Burrow is a more gamery version of Legrandha. So it's heavier, it's more involved. But Older is a great game designer. And I'm sure he's one of those designers that doesn't do bad work. Whether you like it or not is a different situation. But you will definitely get something out of it, I'm sure. And I'm hopefully gonna give it a go soon. I need to get on that because I'm sure it's a good game. And I've been playing a lot of sort of different type games recently. I need to play a heavy Euro. Although I replayed Gollum recently, and I remember really enjoying it when I bought it, and I didn't particularly get. I played it twice. I didn't particularly get off on it this time. A little fiddly. So, wow, you're good. Thank you, Ulf. Have you been in any musicals? Any favorite musicals? So I have been in musicals, though not for a while. I was in Sweet Charity. I played the nightclub owner in Sweet Charity. And when I was amateur, I did lots of musicals. And last summer, the theatre company, the English Theatre in Berlin, we devised a piece on Bowie in Berlin, about his time, because Bowie was here for 2 years in the late 70s and he produced 3 classic albums in Berlin. And so we did a play about that, and we sang a lot of Bowie songs as an ensemble, but I sang a song by a transsexual performer called Romy Schneider from Holland, and it's in German. If I can find the chords for that, I might play that. But I need to be able to write German for a start. Let me look. Can I find it? It's good. It's good. I found it somewhere. Blaue Gitarre. I can't spell. That's my problem. I can't spell in English or German. No, that's blau. Ah, there we go. Oh, yeah, I might play that. Actually in a bit. Yeah, I'm gonna play that in a bit. It's in German. I'll try and be quiet so my neighbours don't complain. Any favourite musicals? Yeah, I got a couple of favourite musicals. I like Candor and Emp, so I love Cabaret. Cabaret is brilliant. I'm not a musicals fan. I always say I'm not a musicals fan, and I can list a load of musicals I like. I think Cabaret is fantastic. I think Chicago is fantastic. I think Little Shop of Horrors is probably my favourite. I think the story's brilliant. It's very funny. And the songs are just great. The songs are off the chain in Little Shop of Horrors. They're all great. Downtown, I think, is the show opener, and it's brilliant. And the movie is just perfect. They are both the 2 leads, Rick Moranis and that woman. I can't remember her name. She's a massive Broadway star. She was at the time. She is brilliant. Her performance is flawless. It's so great. It's so great, Little Shop of Horrors. I'm not into Andrew Lloyd Webber particularly, and I'm not into Les Miserables and all of that, but yeah, love Little Shop of Horrors. And the film version, I don't know, they're both great. I saw it live, Little Shop of Horrors as well, but I'm a Mean Green Mother from Outer Space is only in the film and not in the stage version. So Anthony Boydell asks me, would I play Hamlet? Well, I mean, so the answer is obviously yes. I would love to play Hamlet. It's a great role. But I wonder, am I too old now? Could I pull off Hamlet? So I wonder whether I'm too old. Maybe that ship has sailed, unfortunately. But I mean, I would love to. But the one role I always really wanted, actually, from Shakespeare. Give me a second. I'm going to sneeze. There were two roles I always wanted to play. Two cheeky. I'm not that old yet. There are two roles I always wanted to play when I was young, and I said these are the two roles I want to play in theatre. One was Jimmy Porter in Look Back in Anger, and the other was Richard III in the play of the same name. And I've managed to play Jimmy Porter. It was wonderful. I played it in Vienna and Look Back in Anger. It's the best sort of modern role for an angry young man. It is absolutely great fun. And I haven't played Richard III yet. So maybe one day I will get to play Richard III. And I think you can be a bit older playing Richard III. I think you could be a bit older. But Hamlet, am I a bit young now? I think maybe I am. Unfortunately. I'm trying to look for this song, excuse me. But I can't spell in German. Okay, I can try it. Yeah, so Hamlet would be wonderful. Jimmy Porter was great. I learned the definition of the word pusillanimous. If you've ever seen Look Back in Anger, it's a brilliant play. It's a horrible play. It is about codependent relationships and people being just vile to each other, but it is absolutely one of the greats in the English language. I love it. Right, let's look at the questions from the Discord. I'm not very organized tonight. I'm usually more organized. So the question is, if you could be head of game development at any board game studio, which one would it be and why is it Spielworks? Well, so if I could be head of game development, so my partner, not in that way, Steve, is creative director at Spielworks, and you don't want to mix business and pleasure, so it wouldn't be Spielworks. Head of game development at any board game studio, which one would it be and why? And I think I've been thinking about this, and my answer, I think, is Fantasy Flight Games. And the reason it's Fantasy Flight is because when I got into the hobby, a lot of my gaming was sort of dominated by Fantasy Flight. I played a lot Warrior Knights and Descent 2nd Edition and Blood Bowl Team Manager and Space Angel, whatever it's called, and board game Battlestar Galactica, and all of these great Fantasy Flight games. And it seems to me that since the takeover from Asmodee, it has been gutted essentially as a company, and just does Marvel games and stuff now, and the Arkham Horror LCG, which is brilliant. I would love to go there and reinvigorate Fantasy Flight again and make it the place where it had before it got taken over, which is, I think, the true sort of home of Ameritrash. I think there were two islands of games. There was the German island, which is very Euro heavy with Lookout and Foyerland and people like this. And then there was Fantasy Flight. And they just held up American gaming for so long. And I would love for them to be significant again, because I've got so many great memories of wonderful nights playing Fantasy Flight games. They made me a gamer. So I've got a question from Ulf Pearson. I saw this earlier and I'm scared to death of it. So I'm going to put this here. So, terroir is a French term used to describe the environmental factors that affect a crop's phenotype, including unique environment, context, farming practices, and the crop's specific growth habit. Collectively, these contextual characteristics are said to have a character. Terroir also refers to this character. Some artisanal crops, which terroir may imply, include wine, cheese, coffee, single malt whiskey, onions, and tea. The question is coming. Now to my questions. Do you think board games can be said to have a terroir? Is there something distinctively French, Italian, Portuguese, Japanese, or Finnish, and so on, to games designed by different designers from those countries? Or is it more a publisher's influence, if anything? It's a fascinating question. I guess you're asking, basically, do games from different countries have different characters? I think this was very simple a while ago, where you could say, you know, American games tend to deal with certain things. European games tend to deal with certain things. Now America is producing. America often does this, right? America took craft beer, Belgian beer, German Weizen beer, and then they went over to America and they put their own unique twist on these things and made brilliant concoctions. And I think they do this with Eurogames too. There are some wonderful Eurogames that come out of America. But what I've noticed in my gaming history, so Portuguese, now I'm sure there's lots of Portuguese games that aren't super heavy, but the terroir of Portuguese games, Paulo and Nuno, Roller and Costa, Vital Lacerda, tend to be super heavy, super involved Euro games, right? French games tend to be off kilter. They sort of take some concepts and then make them uniquely their own. French games are still tacky, it feels to me. There is a mischievous streak in French board game design, I think. And almost universally, French games are beautifully illustrated. You don't see bad art from French board game companies. And why that is particular to France, I don't know. I mean, of course, that's changed now. So coming up, I'm interviewing Andrew Bosley and I'm interviewing Quanchai Moria, and they've done a lot to really up the level in board game art. Japanese, I was speaking to someone the other day and they were off to, they were talking about, so I'm interviewing Freedom and Freezer soon, and they were talking about him going off to the Japanese game fair. Oh, it was Jason Tagmeyer, that's right, from Button Shy. And he said he really needs to go there because basically it's a room full of Button Shy games. And so Japanese, and I think it's space constriction, makes these very small, very clever little card games. It seems to me that Eastern European designers, especially Czech, Polish, tend to make really clever Euro games. Finnish, I don't know enough about. The only real notable Finnish game I know is Eclipse, and I think only knowing one game doesn't feel like I can say, well, Finnish people do brilliant 4X games, but, Eclipse is one of the best games ever made. And Brits, as Tony says, definitely have a dark, unique streak. I think in general, the British are great at being very parochial, but also very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're parochial and unsaccharine, I think, is the best way to describe that. The British are very cynical of things that look too slick and too good, and their games reflect it. I mean, Tony, for instance, as a designer, I think Tony's a wonderful designer, and his games have a nasty streak a mile wide. I think they are games that that you can punish other people. I think Guilds of London is probably my favorite Tony Boydell game, and it's nasty, and it's brilliant for it. I think the market dictates now, right? Unless it's imprinters in music and film. So I was just interviewing someone who worked at GameFound for the show, and I'm sort of a bit down on crowdfunding in general. I think crowdfunding is necessary, but I think it also has a deleterious effect on game design. And I was sort of asking him, do you think it makes games worse? And I look at a company like Awaken Realms, and I'm not sure that game design is their primary concern. That bothers me, I think. And that's the market. People will go to GameFound, they will go to Kickstarter, and they will back it. They will back games merely because it's a box full of dildos. Tony Bosco says, Japanese design seems to highlight trick takers, social deduction, and dice games, usually with an emphasis on minimalism and usually card games. I love the approach. Yeah. I mean, so I used to go every year to Essen, and I used to buy 4 or 5 Japan brand games from their booth because the aesthetic is always beautiful. They're always super interesting. The problem is most of them are crap. I hate to say it, most of them are crap. A couple I played were really good. I've got one called Vampire Radar, which is one of the few hidden movement games that I like. And there's one called Fram Relier, which is a Cthulhu-themed little card game, which is also really good. But mostly, I'm not a fan. So I don't buy them anymore, essentially, because I never play them. Peter Taylor says, I like the auteur directing the feel like Wim Wenders imitating Ozu. Kind of want the best of board game designers to do this. So I want, if anyone's seen, it's called, I'm going to be really pretentious now. It's called Himmel über Berlin in German. Wings of Desire by Wim Wenders. It is one of my least favorite films. I think it's absolute trash. Though I watched Wim Wenders' Perfect Days, which was nominated for Best Foreign Film this year, I think. And that was wonderful. It was really good. Yeah, I mean, I'm into the sort of idea of the auteur game designer too. And I think there are certain people. So I think Tony Boydell is an auteur game designer. I think he's unflinching and uncompromising in what he wants to make games about. I think Vladimir Suchy is a great auteur designer. I think even though he's sort of under the umbrella of a company, I think Vlada Chvátil is. I think Uwe Rosenberg is. I think Stefan Feld is. And I think this is a wonderful thing about games is you can really play interesting and like movies, you take an established trope and then you flip it and you make it super interesting and you make it unique to yourself. And I think that's what it is. I think things that are too avant-garde are too hard work. Yeah, Perfect Days is great. Italian games used to have card text both in English and Italian. Yeah, Italian game design. I guess I'm thinking about Cranio here, but there are 2 major Italian companies, Cranio and Horrible. And it's interesting that they used to work together. They used to both work in the same company. And they've gone very different directions. Cranio do the big heavy Euros now, and Horrible do the more accessible games. And they both do incredible jobs. Italian games, apart from Gollum, which has got some real odd production issues, And what I love, I think, about board gaming is because it's cheap, relatively speaking, to produce board games. You get board games from everywhere, which is wonderful. You get board games from all over the world. Every country makes them, and I think it's great. And they do have national character, and they do reflect. And of course, in the way that Kurosawa, did his own take on American westerns. You see Americans, you see a lot of the world. Germany is the real trailblazer in game design, and you see a lot of sort of regional variations on German tropes that are all incredibly unique, and I love that. I love it. It's a wonderful reason to be into games. I really enjoy how Suki approaches his themes in games, and I also really like the simplicity of Rosenberg designs. No flashy bits, just the game. Yes, I was speaking to this guy from GameVine, lovely guy, and I felt maybe I gave him a bit too much shit, actually. But I find that by its very nature, game designs become hugely flabby because you have to have loads of expansions to run a crowdfunder, and it's not my bag, really. Speaking to Stefan Feld, and he told me, I don't like expansions. I don't like expansions to my game. Oh, he's watching. Luke is watching. Good. I hope I didn't give you too much shit. Yeah. Stefan Feld said he doesn't like making expansions for his games. I like that as an ethos. I don't think expansions are inherently bad, but I think you should try and design the best game you can. Actually, I'm in Berlin. I'm feeling Berlin-y today. I'm going to play, not too loud. I don't want to get... I'm going to play a very Berlin song. I'm going to tune my guitar first. This guitar does not stay in tune. This is great. You must be loving this entertainment, watching me tune my guitar. Oof. It's better. There we go. All right. So this is the... So I am going to sing the... I'm going to sing the edited chart version of this song. It's probably better because the other one's a bit long. And it's a classic, and you'll love it, I'm sure. And so while I'm singing this, pop some questions this week, because I ended up taking too long interviewing and I was cycling all around Berlin today. I'm not very well prepared. So pop some questions in the comments, and I'll answer them after I play this song. I wish you could swim like the dolphins, like dolphins can swim. Though nothing will keep us together, we can beat them forever and ever. Oh, we can be heroes just for one day. I will be king, and you will be queen. for nothing will drive them away. We can be heroes just for one day. We can be us just for one day. I can remember standing by the wall, and the gods shot above our heads, and we kissed though nothing would fall, and the shame was on the other side. We can beat them forever and ever. Then we can be heroes just for one day. We can be heroes we can be heroes we can be heroes just for one day. We can be heroes. There we go, David Bowie. Heroes. Classic 1977 track. Released the year I was born. Bloody hell, I'm old. All right, so what are we looking at? What are you cooking to impress a significant other? I can cook about two things. I cook them quite well, but I can only cook about two things. You are right, Eno, Fripp, and Bowie. I love Fripp. I love Fripp's latest career pivot as a YouTube star. I think it's wonderful. Anyway, what am I cooking? What I'm cooking to impress a significant other is very simple, but done very well. So it is bangers and mash, but it's beautiful, herby, posh, M&S, yay, I say, Waitrose sausages. With peas, has to be with peas. A beautiful, thick onion gravy and mash made with mature cheddar cheese, butter, milk, and red Leicester. And that is food for a king. And if you don't get no nooks after that, they haven't got a soul. One thing I love is depending on publishers, like I do with Faber and Faber, Fitzcarraldo in music terms, Drag City and Domino. I feel De Vere has done that recently. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not a big fan of De Vere, I must say. I haven't played a game by them that I've really enjoyed, though I haven't played Red Cathedral or White Castle that I hear are fabulous. But yeah, Czech Games Edition, always going to be interesting. Delicious Games, always going to be interesting. Who else? What other publishers? Queen Games, always going to be interesting. Schmidt-Spieler, always going to be interesting. I mean, Asmodee, they publish some really interesting games. At Lariacon this year, we played the new Heat expansion with Asger, the designer. And God, Heat's a really good game, you know. It's a really good game. And that's Asmodee. That's an Asmodee staple. And yeah. And Fowers Games, brilliant. I played Run from Fowers Games. And it's really good. He has a real singular style, and his games are beautifully designed. Okay, Robin Lee's asked, rank 'em. Cardboard tokens, wooden tokens, resin tokens, Bakelite tokens. Oh, that's hard, isn't it? So, hang on a second. I received this the other day. Oh my god, it's heavy. I received Frippen. Peter Taylor, you are quite right. I think Toya looks great for a woman of her age. She really does. Here we go. So, I received this in the post the other day. Bloodstones from the eminent designer Martin Wallace, who I'm proud to say is a close friend. So, and what's so great about Bloodstones, right? So, I wish I could say wooden tokens are my favorite, but Bloodstones has these absolutely glorious. Is it going to focus? Probably not. These glorious Bakelite tokens that are just so tactile and they make great noises. And so I'm going to go Bakelite top. Sacrilegious, I know. Bakelite top. Wooden second. Cardboard third. Resin last. I think a lot of the resin tokens that are like realistic wood and that, I think they're a bit crap. And frankly, games don't need them. If you have brilliant game mechanics, you don't need that immersion, you know. But I do love the production of Bloodstones, and it comes with, because all the maps, none of the maps are cardboard. They're all. It comes with a gym bag. This is a bag you can put the folded maps in and carry it around in this bag. I think it's a brilliant production. I think Martin's really excelled himself this time. And I'm going to be playing that this week. It's going to be exciting. Probably going to do a battle report. And so we haven't done a battle report recently because my partner in podcasting crime, Stevie, has been away in America. So we need to catch up. So, and you can listen to the battle reports by going onto the Patreon, and they're instant play thingies. And they're very good and they're very funny. And they're also quite interesting. So that's my rank, I think. Bakelite, wooden, cardboard, resin. That's my rank. All right, let's have a look. Other questions. What are emergent trends that you see in the hobby? So if any of you see this, pop down in the comments. I'd be interested. I'm interested in what you think. But there are negative emergent trends, and I think nothing highlights this more. I'm not very behind this. So if Luke is still watching, maybe Luke is still watching, but we were talking about Foundations of Rome, and he made a brilliant point, which was Foundations of Rome is such a bloody shame because he said it's a brilliant game that is completely ruined by its inaccessibility because it's so bloody expensive. And it seems to me Foundations of Rome is one of those games. I haven't played it personally, but it's not a game that demands that sort of level of production. It is the kind of game that could win Spiel des Jahres, for instance, and is ruined by the fact that it costs 250 quid. And Spiel des Jahres wouldn't look at it, wouldn't touch it with yours, you know. So there is a trend, and I think because crowdfunding has become so competitive that you've got to get eyes and you've got to have special things, that massive overproduction of games. And I don't think it's even a concern about environmental trends, though I think games could be more environmentally friendly. It's not that's the issue. I think it's a focus upon dildos instead of gameplay. And that's why I'm not behind the new version of Castles of Burgundy. The old version of Castles of Burgundy was ugly, but it doesn't matter. It was 30 quid and it was the best game in the world. And the fact that you could get one of the greatest examples of this art form for 30 quid was glorious. And it is a shame for me that I mean, I still think you can buy the cheap versions. That's not so much of an issue. But I think negatively, massive overproduction that serves the kind of media that's being created around games and crowdfunding. So that's a negative emergent trend. A positive emergent trend at the moment, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I've been saying this for a while now. But I think the biggest positive I've seen recently, and I think Thunder Road Vendetta highlights this the most. I think Road Vendetta is just a masterpiece, and the real comeback, the real comeback for Ameritrash because of brilliant design, of brilliant Ameritrash design. And Thunder Road is a brilliant game. Is it random? Yeah. Is it stupid? Yeah. Is it unjust? Yeah. Is it calculated to create the most? Is it designed to create the most joyous randomness? Absolutely. And I hope that's a trend that continues. Brilliant, accessible, short Ameritrash games, because the big problem with Ameritrash previously was that it was the big problem was that it was very complex games that lasted a long time, and something and used all the randomness and stuff. But I mean, I used to, Warrior Knights again. I've been talking about that, but I think Ameritrash games really coming to the fore, I hope, is a trend. The trend to make games satisfying on a first play at all costs. I'm speaking for most mainstream releases. Yes. And I think this is a necessary drawback from the expansion of the hobby, unfortunately. Is that before, when you have a hobby that is made up of a hardcore of enthusiasts, they don't really give a shit about the first play. They want to delve in and discover. When you have a large palette of gamers, I'm not saying this is a bad thing at all. When you have a large palette of gamers from the casual to the hardcore, then, and especially you're trying to sell more and more copies because you've got this whole audience out there. You need the games to be very flashy from the beginning. And that can lead to the games not having a huge amount of legs, having very little to discover because all the hooks are there from the beginning. But, great games are simple and engaging from the first play and continue to have depth. I point you towards Libertalia. What do you think about the two-tier approach, and would it work? I wish that I could get Castles of Burgundy for 30 quid. Hate the need to add so much things and make things so expensive. Same happening in music. It always used to be the way, no? I mean, especially with music, right? You could buy the sort of big deluxe box, not for every album, but certainly you could buy the big deluxe box set, and then you could buy just the CD, right? And I think that's great. I have no inherent issue, except when I'm being sort of curmudgeonly. I have no inherent issue per se with deluxeification of games, as long as people who have no money like me can buy the 30 quid version. I don't want the ones with the dildos. I want the 30 quid version. I find it more charming. And that's my aesthetic choice, and that's fine, I think. But also if we truly want, and we often have this discussion. I was talking to Michael Heron, who's used to run the Meeple Like Us blog and has recently published a book about accessibility in games. And I was really surprised because with the American left essentially abandoning class as a factor in social justice now, there's very little, it's all focused on identity and not on class. And so you see a lot of, where was I going with this? Yeah, you see people talking about, accessibility in games, diversity in games, and they never talk about how much a game costs. And he has a chapter in his book, Socioeconomic Accessibility. And something like Foundations of Rome, I think, would be a perfect example of this. that you have a 30, 40, 50 quid version of the game without all the plastic dildos. And then you have the 200 quid version for the people who want it. Games for as many people as possible, I think, is a great thing. And this constant desire, this constant arms race for the most dildos in the box at all times, I don't think is necessarily great. I mean, I don't mind games with big productions, but very few of my favorite ones are, really. If I look now at my top 10 from last year, are there any really dildo heavy games? Let's have a look. So my top 10, Stevenson's Rocket. The production from Grail was absolutely fantastic, but very simple production. Wooden pieces, you could have plastic pieces as well. The plastic pieces are a bit gauche, I think, actually. But yeah, very simple production. Brilliant. War of the Ring 2nd edition. All right, this is a game. I actually think the production is... War of the Ring 2nd edition is a game where you had board game pieces and miniatures, and board games still came with board game pieces and not miniatures, and so you see that in War of the Ring. This may be one that I would completely bling out. If they did a 3rd edition with, super duper miniatures and it costs a lot of money, I might save up to get it and even buy some funky stuff. Steve has a really blinged out copy with a 3D mount Doom, and I bought him some D6 with the one ring in them for Christmas. So that one, yes, but that's a game that takes 5 hours, that tells an epic story that is really boosted by that. I'm not saying I'm against it completely. Antiquity is just expensive because Splotter games are expensive because they don't print very many, but it's not a big, audacious production. Concordia is the classic. If they did a deluxe, and maybe I'm out, actually. Maybe I'm out. If Awakened Realms announced a deluxe Concordia with fucking life-size shit meeples, then maybe I'm just out. Concordia is the perfect Eurogame, and it needs to be the perfect Eurogame with the perfect Eurogame pieces. Arkham Horror, the card game, is a card game. I mean, there's a lot to buy, but inherently it's not a stupid production. Modern Art, one of the best games ever made. Just cards. Perfect. Easels if you've got the Oink one like I have. Le Havre, again, perfect game, perfect Euro production. I like that Lookout haven't gone dildo crazy, and it's a dildo score of no dildos. Skull King, just a packet of cards, brilliant. Dildo score, no dildos. Dungeons and Dragons is my second choice, and Dungeons and Dragons can be whatever you want. I play with Theatre of the Mind. I don't have minis. So when it's me, from 0 to 10 dildos, 0 dildos. And Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization is my number one game, and that's fantastic too. And it's just wooden cubes. I like the transparent cubes. So I'm not massively big on massive overproduction. Robin asks, will overproduction of games and high price points eventually harm the hobby? It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think it depends upon the economic health of society in general, because they are luxury products, right? One thing it will do, though, it will keep the game market as it is, unremittingly middle class. And being an interloper into the middle classes like I am, I can tell you the middle classes don't really like the working classes. They claim to, but they don't. And so I think the middle classes would be quite happy to keep the working classes out secretly, even though they might not elucidate that in public. On a scale from Ameritrash to Euro, what 2 games would you put at the extreme ends? That's a great question. I think Concordia is the Euroist of Euro games. Set in the ancient world, you're trading, you're not battling, it's a wonderful, pure mechanical game, very little chance apart from the card draws. It's the most Euro-y of Euro games, and it's perfect. Orleans might come a second to that. And then the biggest Ameritrash. I've got Cave Evil on this shelf that I have to return to Michael at Essen this year, hopefully. It's difficult, isn't it? I think maybe, and this is, I think that Thunder Road Vendetta is just the quintessential Ameritrash game. So if you take, to be very fiddly rules-wise, to have lots of exceptions, and to roll a lot of dice, then I would say maybe Arkham Horror 2nd Edition is very, very Ameritrashy. Descent is very, very Ameritrashy. But I'm gonna go with Thunder Road. I think it's the quintessence of Ameritrash in all the greatest ways. Robin says Descent. Descent's very Ameritrashy, but I'm going with. I think it deserves to be in the top 10 of Board Game Geek. Thunder Road. I think it's absolute genius, and it is going to crash into my top 100 this year. Surely it's about how you consume. So many people play things once or twice. Surely you can't understand anything until you spend some time with it. But we have a swamped market. I agree, and I am guilty of playing games a few times, though I've been playing a lot of older games recently and replaying stuff. And I've been playing a lot of War of the Ring, the card game, and I love it, and I can't wait for the expansion. I'm seeing a lot of games with little to no interaction amongst players, and more games that create lots of moments of players staring down at the player boards and just muttering to themselves. Yeah, there are. So I think part of broadening the appeal of especially Euro games is making them less attacky. If you go back to something like Notre Dame or something, these old Stefan Feld games in the Year of the Dragon, the game really beat you around the head. Your game was your opponent, not the other players. The game was the opponent. You were trying to defeat the game. And games have become very nice. And I think part of the reason for that is that companies don't want people to feel bad. And so if you look at, for instance, Age of Steam, if you play the first round of Age of Steam, or a Splotter game, if you play the first round of Age of Steam wrong, you could be out of the game in the first round. And people don't think that's desirable. And I think that is horses for courses. Sometimes I'm up for that, sometimes I'm not. Concordia is perfect as it is. It absolutely is. Trog Dawson, how nice is the production of Bloodstones, though? To me, it feels like the components are well designed with the multi-use tiles. What do you think of the game? So, I think the production of Bloodstones is joyful, and I'm completely contradicting everything I just said. But I'm a sucker for Bakelite. I played the game once. I need to play it a few more times because I'm reviewing it. And what I've noticed off my first play of it is that I think it kind of markets itself as a kind of Kemet-y, Inish-y kind of dudes on a map game. But it is not that. It is a much more thoughtful, much slower paced, much more strategic game, I think, on my first play of it. I think it feels more old-fashioned in that sense. And I don't think that is a bad thing. And I think it's a game, it's a serious game. And I enjoyed my first play, but I played with the full player count of 6. Don't play with 6. Most of these games don't work at high player counts. I'm going to play it with 4, and I think I'm going to enjoy it. But I think it's a thoughtful, deliberative experience as opposed to a bashwang wallop. And I love Kemet. I think Kemet is wonderful, but I think it's more of a deliberative experience. So I think Yokohama is good. I played Yokohama once. I didn't like it. I need to go back to it because everyone says it's brilliant. I must have been wrong on my first play. Justin says Foundation of Rome is a lot. Arcade Wonders is putting out a scaled down version, Foundations of Metropolis. Modern setting, cartoon look, not as cool as Rome, but good to see a reasonable option. Yeah, and I'd play either version, but it's good that they're doing another version. I don't know why they just don't do maybe they promised the Kickstarter or something they wouldn't or something, but I don't know. Reminds me more of Tiger. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a different. But I've only played it once, and I need to play it at least 2 or 3 more times before I can write a review on it. So let's have a look. Do we have any more questions? Yes. So Matthew Coates says, I'm heading to my first convention, Origins, in June. I'll be solo, and as the date nears, my excitement occasionally veers into dread. Any advice on setting expectations, what to carry, any ins and outs of conventions that I ought to know beforehand? So, I can give you my advice based upon the fact that I'm quite outgoing and I like a drink. So, going to a board game convention and having so the first thing I would say to you is have before Origins, start a podcast. Then you have an inbuilt group of people you can meet up. Most of the people I know through the board game industry is through the podcast. But seriously, going to things alone is rough. For the simple reason that you think, and you're wrong on this, if you ever have that little worm in the back of your head that says, oh my God, I'm imposing on these poor people. Honestly, unless you're an objectionable dickhead, you're not imposing. People are at conventions specifically to get to know people. And I don't know if Origins has the flags on the table looking for players, but if they do, my recommendation, and this is easy for me because I'm a dickhead, right? So I can sit around a table, I can start a conversation, I can crack a joke. But I guess you can't be that agoraphobic if you're going to Origins on your own. Just play games with people. You'll meet people. Have a drink. Even if you don't drink booze, have a cola. And you'll just meet people and it'll be good fun. And as I said earlier, you'll meet people in conventions like Ulf, who I was talking about earlier, who kind of become friends very quickly because conventions are a catalytic converter to friendship, right? And so take water with you, I would suggest, and just and if there's some games you want to look at, just look at those games, but don't get stressed about having to see everything. I'm not quite sure how big Origins is, but don't get stressed about having to look at anything, and just and you will find you go there with the intention to play loads and loads of stuff, and you won't play as much as you want because just things end up taking time. You'll sit down to a game in the morning and you'll think, oh, I'll have this done by 11:30, and then I'll start something else, and it's suddenly 3:00 in the afternoon. But that's sound, and conventions are great. And someone on the Discord has already said play a game with us, so go play a game with them. And people are really nice, and if people are familiar with the convention, they will help you out, I would suggest. I'm a white guy who doesn't have a podcast, so what am I even doing? Yeah, I mean, everyone's got a podcast at this point, haven't they? Copying me. Poker Frosh. I think you played some war games like Coin, for example. Do you think there are mechanics in war games that should be adapted to Euros? Well, so I think with coin games in particular, there are mechanics that have been taken from Euros into Coin. So Coin is a lot of resource management, and it's a lot of sort of area control. And I think they're Euro kind of staples. And I think a coin game is a more intense sort of resource management game. I'm not so much of a wargamer that I particularly know a lot, but the central idea of the card-driven thing, where you flip a card, I think Concordia kind of does this. You flip a card and you do what it says, except you have a limited hand of cards. I think the card-driven thing could really go over to Eurogames brilliantly. The beginning of a round, you flip a card, and then that dictates turn order. Like that central idea in Coin that it says, who goes first and who can do the event and all of that sort of stuff. I think that could really, that central Coin mechanic where event or action or whatever could really, really work brilliantly in a Euro. And I'd like to see someone do it who's cleverer than me. Yeah, the turn selection in Coin is fascinating. I'm surprised it hasn't made it. It will. I mean, someone will do it at some point, I think. All right, so I think I might have one more question. Let's have a look. So what are your 5 dooms for game day? Very simple. I watched that Leave It All Behind movie with Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts last night. Executive producers Barack and Michelle Obama. Weird, isn't it? That they're executive producing a movie all of a sudden. Anyway, it was boring. I like apocalyptic stuff. And it had some moments, but I thought the camera work was too intrusive, too much CGI, and it was dull, fundamentally. My 5 dooms for Games Day. Tsunami. Rain of Frogs. Hurricane. Lavaed to death. Attacked by a plague of cats. So, thank you all so much for watching the stream this week. It was a little bit all up in the air because I was massively underprepared. The Tesla bit was hilarious. Yeah, that's true. The friends thing, though, wasn't a fan. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching the stream. I'm going to go to bed now because I've got to go and walk around in the blistering hot sun tomorrow because it's May Day, up the workers. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And there will be a video. There wasn't a video last week because I was doing so many interviews for the podcast, but there will be a video this week, 5 games for escapists. A lot of Donald Trump as Jesus in this video coming up this week. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Keep it real, Ziz.